Jane Irwin.
I'm Sharon McKenzie.
And we live in Sarasota, Florida, and I see we have a Sarasota, Florida person with us. Tavy, thanks for joining us at such short notice. We've been investing since 2016, have over 100 deals under our belt, different states, different areas. And so we're just trying to help other people. We're practitioners, we're not gurus, but we're just trying to help other people not make the same mistakes. So kind of do's and don'ts, tips and tricks to keep you safe and be successful. And we joined up with James and Nicole.
Are we still on?
Yeah,
Are
you're
we
on.
still on? Okay, I missed.
They went to slide. So we joined up, and we're running the virtual REI Academy, which is I think Sharon's going to talk about that a little bit, and I'll be quiet.
Okay, we'll get started. This Teaching Tuesday is brought to you by the Virtual REI Academy platform with an assembly of successful investors that are at the top of their field. They come
Excuse
together
me,
to
are you trying to share something on the screen? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, there's no share.
No, there is share, but I don't know. Let me do this. Let me make you a co-host, and maybe that'll let you do it, because I did it for everybody, but for some reason it's not letting you share. All right, you're a co-host now. You want to give it a shot and hit your share button?
Get your Zoom down.
I can't find it.
Hit Zoom. Okay.
It does disappear.
That
All
might.
right, now share screen.
Okay,
Now hit share.
is that?
Yep,
Am I
here
sharing?
it comes. There you go. You're all done.
Technology, you know we love it.
Yep.
Okay. Whoops. How come the chats are up here? Everything's in a weird.
So just to finish up, the Virtual REI Academy, it's just a platform that we have that, so we have experienced investors on there. We have different courses, different classes, and a lot of free content, or you can join up and get some of the advanced courses. And we're just doing these Teaching Tuesdays to kind of help everybody out and give some value and add some good stuff, hopefully.
Okay, we're going to be talking about this week and next week. We're going to break down team building. We think it's important to talk about real estate agents, realtors, and property managers.
And this is something that we're learning. You're only as good as your team and who's on your team.
Yep, your network is your net worth. You have to first, you want to be specific and clearly define your needs and what kind of team member that you're speaking. Clearly define your expectations, determine specific roles and responsibility that you're looking for in a real estate agent and in a property manager. This will help you identify the traits and skills and what, the perfect candidate. And where to find them. You seek recommendations and referrals, ask for recommendations from people that are successful in the real estate field, your fellow investors, friends, colleagues, people that you know and trust, and that you can maybe take a look at their properties that they buy, and how their property managers are performing. And consider checking online reviews and testimonials for the potential candidates. And
the referrals and the recommendations are probably the best thing. Like, if we still have some properties in Baltimore, but if we were to get more, decide that was a market we wanted to get back into a little heavy, of course, right here, we have people we can call and say, who do you use? How are they? And that was one of the don'ts that we did early on, was we didn't know a lot of people, or we knew a lot of people, but we weren't making those relationships. We kind of were introverts. We sat back in the corner and we didn't really talk to people as much as we should. So early on, we hired a property manager that, he was new, we were new, kumbaya, we're all going to grow together and do this. That didn't work out. But we failed to, ask what his and anything about what he did, or how experienced he was, or what houses he had, or did we go look at his houses? We didn't do any of that. We just kind of went with our heart. So, now it's very important. We'll just ask referrals and recommendations, and people will tell you that, if somebody's a crappy property manager or an agent, that's not going to work with them.
And she brought up a good point, verify their credentials and licenses, because each state has their rules with, like, property managers. Some states you're required to be a realtor, a real estate agent to be a property manager. And actually Florida is one of them. And we were vetting a couple of property managers, and there were several on our list that we found out that they didn't have the proper licenses and credentials. They weren't agents.
And
So-
you can get away with friends and family, or, partners with somebody, if you're, trying to skirt the system, but at the end of the day, they weren't very good property managers, and, that's why they didn't go and get their license, presumably.
And more on qualifications that you want to interview them, find out their experience level, how many houses that they have under their belts, or the years of experience they have, their track record, for the realtors, how many houses they've sold, percentage of the listed houses that did not sell, with the property managers, how successful they are at placing tenants, their percentage of vacancies. And also a good thing to do with when you're interviewing either party is ask them how they handle challenges. Ask for an example of a challenge that they overcame and let them explain the process. Because you want somebody that thinks outside the box, they can think quick on their feet and solve problems. You have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess the biggest one with that is, and how they handle challenges would be more, like we had somebody in Baltimore that wanted to live in the house free. The property manager didn't know how to deal with that, so they just kind of hid their head and didn't really go aggressively. So if you have a property manager that's not going to, be aggressive, then that's not the person that we want to have to get evictions.
And we're gonna concentrate on realtors, real estate agents, for this slide. When selecting a real estate agent, the key is to consider that they'll be your great team member, that they're cater to you and fit well on your team and for your needs. Experience and expertise. Look for real estate agents with significant experience in your local market and a strong track record of success. And they know your market, the market that you're interested in. Like, you might need multiple realtors, certain ones that are experts at certain types of houses. If your niche is buying different houses, different types, you might want one that's in different market areas. With us, we need different realtors, as you can tell, because we have 9 different states that we buy properties and conduct real estate investing. And you need them, they want to be up to par on the market trends and investment opportunities. And they'll be better equipped to provide valuable insights and guidance through the process when they're abreast on all this. And specialization in investment properties. You want an investor-friendly realtor that works with other investors, understand how investors work and what they're looking for and what deals they need to create. Analyze the property values properly. And you also, sometimes we ask the realtors if they invest in real estate themselves, because that's a good indicator that they know what they're doing and what they're looking for. And well-versed in fix and flips as well as rental properties. And you might want to ask for the commercial investments, because something comes across your desk or, your computer with multifamilies or something you're not quite used to, you want to try to delve into, then you want your realtor to grow with you. And a great real estate agent will have a strong network of professionals, such as lenders, contractors, property inspectors, property managers, and have a lot of connections and that you can glean from and work with. And that they're effective they're effective in their communication skills, and they're very responsive. Because us as investors, we lose a deal if we don't put in that bid that offer immediately. So you want them to understand and put in offers exactly when you need them to be put in and what kind of offer you need to put in. We've had other realtors that we needed, you put in some lowball offers and you try to get a counter, and you have different strategies when you make offers on houses. And we've had agents that just flat out refused to put in our offer and said they're not going to take this, or that's not the way we do things. So
Which I think is illegal, but we
they,
didn't
they
push the envelope there.
we've had it done to us a good amount of time, so that happens quite a lot. And and let them know ahead of time, we're responsible for letting the realtor know how we do things, how we conduct business, how we put in bids, so that the communication is two-sided, it's open and transparent from both sides. And make sure that they have good communication and negotiation skills. They can make a significant difference in the success of the investment, who possesses strong negotiation skills and have a history of securing favorable terms and prices for you as the client. And they have them continue to, as you grow together and understand how each other works, they can start to negotiate on your behalf to help you maximize your investment. So you're not always have to be present, and they start seeing how you think and what kind of properties you look for, and what kind of negotiation that is needed. And references and testimonials from previous clients. Ask for testimonials from satisfied investors who've worked with the agents in the past, hearing about their own successes and experiences will provide insights into the agent's professionalism and the ability to deliver the results that you're looking for. And, not everybody meshes, so make sure you talk to them and get to know them a little bit and build a rapport to see if you are compatible, because not everybody's compatible. Because you want to make sure that they want to be on your team and it's a fit for everybody. So it's a winning situation for everybody. That their working styles are in line with yours, their productive working relationship to move forward. And you want to have, interview as many agents and have backup agents or realtors, because, sometimes they'll move or go into a different, they might go into commercial from residential, they might switch brokerages. So
Or life happens.
right, they get busy or something happens. So you always want to have backups and backups to your backups. We've learned that too. And take the time to evaluate their qualifications, call their references. So, a lot of times people give you references, but we talk to people who just take it at face value and they don't actually pick up the phone and call the references. And as you start together, work together and build a good relationship, then they'll start giving you deals that they come up with. In the market area, you'll have, they'll give you pocket listings and pocket deals.
Yeah, and for us, I think the bottom line is it's always, and the common theme, like you'll hear over and over, is it's all about relationships. It just over and over again, who you meet, who you talk to. Just a quick example, we got a house on the east coast of Florida. We were going to just wholesale it. We couldn't go over there and flip it. We didn't have contractors. So it's just going to be a quick wholesale. We went to a Pete Fortunato event, just kind of out in the lobby talking, met an agent who just happened to be from that area where we just got, the deal. And, her daughter just happened to be a flipper. So like those kind of things, had we not, talked to her or, just kind of said, oh, you're just an agent, but you just got to keep talking to people. And if we get anything on that side, we have an agent, and because we do things virtually in different states, we have to be more, cognizant of who we meet at different seminars or who we meet at the airport. I mean, even if we're on the plane and we're flying somewhere and we hear somebody talk about real estate, we're going to say, oh, what do you do? And they might just happen to be an agent who, now I'll keep that area in my mind because now I have boots on the ground because I talked to somebody. So it all comes back to relationships for everything. and just being more mindful of those relationships. And, just, I mean, we key in on real estate now, just, when people are talking, it's like, oh, they're talking about real estate, what can we meet them, or what can we add value to them, or, can we give them business, or do I know somebody that needs an agent in that state or in that city or wherever. And then, just keep those relationships going. Just, we learned early on, we did a lot of HUD bidding, and we thought, well, it's no big deal for an agent to bid on 30 houses a night. Well, we quickly learned that, maybe they don't want to do that. Or, hey, can you run comps every day on this house or that house or this house? So you have to be mindful of their time too, because you don't want to waste it. And, maybe at some point we'll bring a investor friendly agent in here, or one of our agents, so that they can kind of show you the other side of it, because what drives them crazy with investors. And I know investors who just over and over, hey, can you run these 5 houses and get me comps? Can you run these? And, now we know it takes a lot of time to do that. So that's, they're going to get tired of you pretty quickly, especially if you don't, actually do any deals with them. So just being cognizant of their time on the flip side, and then, making sure, early on we were kind of wishy-washy with, expectations, but now it's, hey, we need you to put this offer in, we need it in within 24 hours, we need the contract signed. And then you give them the proof of funds, and you give them everything that they need. And then if they don't put that contract in, or they're slow with stuff, then, it's swipe left and on to the next, because you need them to do certain things. And, if you lay your expectations down, and you're buying deals and giving them money, they're going to be a good agent, and you're going to be a good investor, and everything's going to work right.
Now with property managers, it's a lot of them go hand in hand, the same thing. You get their experience and their expertise and references and referrals. They should be well versed in the local rental regulations, including the tenant landlord laws of the area, fair housing requirements, property maintenance standards, so that it, keeps everything honest, and that you don't get in trouble for not adhering to a certain rule and regulation in that area. And it's important to get a property manager that's relevant with the experience of that particular house. Like, you might want one property manager that does long-term rentals, and then another property manager who does more corporate rentals and short-term rentals. So they stay in their lane. It might be a different skill set for each side. And then you also want to know that, that they're strong with the rental market, that area that you're looking for, because we do the same, similar to Nicole. We're not one of, the top of the market for the rentals. We go under it. So, we offer a good house, and we, we're like 5 to 10% less than the average rental market in the areas. And the communication is absolutely key with the property managers as well. They have to communicate well with you and with the tenants to have the expectation of what's expected. And then they also have to communicate with the contractors, and, get people out there that if, there's problems or issues, that they're quick to get in there and fix the house or solve the problem, so that the tenant's comfortable and has a nice, safe place to live. And the really important thing is, this is what some of our property managers in the past fell short, was strong tenant screening process. A reliable property manager will have a thorough screening process in place. They should be, conduct the background checks effectively, verify income and employment, check references, and responsible, and find responsible and reliable tenants. It reduces the risk of late payments, evictions, property damage, and it's really important for them to find, figure out their income source, because you don't want to set a tenant up for failure and they won't be able to afford the rent. You want a win-win, good situation for everybody. they should have a network of trusted contractors and vendors and handymen to handle the maintenance and repairs properly and promptly and efficiently. There should be we usually have something in place where there's a threshold where they would just go in and repair the damages. If it's sometimes it's under 100, sometimes it's under 500 with no questions asked, or they don't have to inform us. And then if it's a higher end repair or issue, then we would get informed before the work is done. So that way things are put in place and the small repairs are done quickly, or and we're not getting the phone calls in the middle of the night. And they have a strong grasp of financial management, including the rent collections, budgeting, expense tracking, provide regular financial reports detailing everything, punch list items, so that everything's transparent and you know where the money is and how it's funneled through. And so you understand where the money's going, where it's coming from. Their price list of key items, line items, and very important for trustworthy integrity. You want them to have trust and integrity built with not only you, but with the tenants, because you want to keep the tenants in place for as long as, you want to retain the tenants as long as possible and keep them happy and have a comfortable, safe haven for them to live as well. And of course, the references and testimonials. We actually reached out to a property manager today from the RIA group. It's, the networking is big. That's where we find a lot of our good people that we use on our team. We went to the local Sarasota RIA group and we reached out to a local property manager, and we found him from a couple other people that use him and was very successful. So we have actually a property to come in vacant in next couple weeks, and our property manager isn't, I guess they retired, so we actually need another property management. So we're going through this whole thing ourselves currently. And another thing is you want to know what their fees are, their services, their price point. And there's always, they always have extras, like a typical property management fee is usually between 9 and 12% a door with single family homes. It has been creeping up to the 12% lately. If you give them more properties, usually it's a threshold of like 10 properties. Once you get up to 10 single family houses, they will reduce it to like the 9 to 10% from the 11 to 12%, which is average. And there's, you're going to have extras for evictions, processing, paperwork. If you have, they have to keep reaching out to the tenant to take care of other issues, and maybe if they got I'm having a brain cramp, a notice. We just got one from Cumberland.
Code.
Yeah, code violation or notices, if they have to take care of that. And there's always like added up charges if they have to go above and beyond, which is understandable. So, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just, again, I think we stumped just because we went to 2 meetings today. So we saw Tavi at one, and then we went to another one in Bradenton, and just, stumbled onto another property manager who everybody uses down that way where our property is. So, sometimes it's because you made things happen or whatever, but, seems like he has a good team. We talked to him today, and then perhaps that, he's going to be our property manager. So I think we've gotten a little better than just taking the first person that comes along. And it's also like, we've already decided we don't want to self-manage. So
Yeah,
those days are over. And sometimes the best property managers or people that own the best property management companies are those who got all their lumps and their bumps and their bruises from actually doing their own, self property manager. Then they become the best property managers because they know all the things not to do.
They've already went through all the problems and the issues to get to where they are. And that's actually the property manager we spoke to. That's what happened to him. He, got properties, and he started out with holding properties from the very beginning, and he's reached out to other successful property managers, and he was able to get in with other groups. And now he's got his own team of it's a property management company. So, we'll reach out to him, and maybe he'll be our property manager from now on. He seems pretty solid. And we definitely, like Jane said, from the very beginning, we never want to self-manage. That's, we don't want to get those phone calls in the middle of the night. We don't want to be a property manager. And also we just, the sob stories that you hear, you get to know the people, you get to know their family, their kids, their life. And then, once you start giving them a little leeway, then, it's usually
Give an inch, take a mile.
exactly. It usually doesn't turn out very well, especially we notice, like, if somebody's a decent tenant and they've been there a while and they have a great track record, and then they need a little help, like maybe 6 or 8 months down the line, and kind of help them get back on track again. It's okay. But when, the first 2-3 months, they're asking for help or issues or having trouble pay their rent, and you give them a little bit of leeway, then you set the precedence for the rest of the time that the tenants are in there, and it doesn't make for good tenants. So we have learned lesson trying to self-manage, and we realize that's one job that we don't want to do, but there's a lot of people out there that love it, and they're happy with it and want to do it, and we will gladly pay them their fees. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Can stop it.
Stop sharing.
Every time I wrote down a question, you guys ended up answering it further down the road. So I kept scratching out my questions.
I did that with Nicole earlier.
Hey, Jane. Hey, Sharon. Thanks for sharing. Really appreciate you guys going through that presentation. So I think one question I have is just as you guys were kind of talking about the team element, and a lot of what you said resonated with me. But just in terms of, like, obviously that networking component, kind of going through your day-to-day life, making those connections, whether it's on the airplane or at the airport or wherever it may be. I think in real estate, every conversation seems to come back to someone having a property or going through something in life. And it's just amazing how those conversations tend to come naturally. So that definitely resonated with me. And my question is, I'd just love to, as you guys have been talking, and I see the other people on the call, I'd love to kind of figure out how to connect with the people on this call. I think we probably all kind of have our own area that we're focusing in, and I think this call is awesome. This is my first time joining this one, but I'd love to figure out how to connect with you guys and share a little bit about what we're all doing and how we can all add value to one another.
Awesome, and we appreciate you being here. Where are you from? What area are you in, Mike?
So we're my wife and I live, and we have the kids in the background, so I apologize. We're in Maryland, north of Baltimore. We actually have a property in Palmetto, right by Sarasota, Bradenton.
Wow.
So we set it up as a short term almost 2 years ago, and kind of a blessing. We've had to manage that property remotely. So we had to build that team and set up our systems and make sure that everything was dialed in, because we couldn't go to the property. So that's been a really great experience for us in terms of learning the ropes with short term. And then this year, our local market, Ocean City, we started taking on properties from a property management perspective, and we love it. We love the communications. We love the relationships. We love solving those challenges that come up and building the relationship. So we love, I will say, management on the short-term side. The long-term, midterm, that's a little bit of a foreign concept to us at this point, but we're trying to invest in that that kind of Tampa, Sarasota, Bradenton market. That's where we're looking right now.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're here every Tuesday. We'll throw our or James will throw our email maybe.
Actually, he already.
Hey, God, he already
He's-
did.
Cool.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna try to go sideways and put it in, but
Thank you,
yeah,
James.
just and then we're here every Tuesday night, and Tavia's in the same market as us, so she can throw her information in there. And that's really what it's all about, is having people to network with and figure things out, because there's plenty out there for everybody. So as long as we all help each other out, things are gonna go a lot better. And we appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's funny, that house that we were talking about that's going vacant is in Palmetto.
Oh, is it really?
Yes. So when you said you had
Oh
a
my
house there, like, that's the one that's.
Small world.
That's,
And that kind of happened with us. That's why we invest virtually. We had just left Maryland when we started, and then we had to manage things from afar. So all our stuff was in Maryland, and we didn't know anybody in Florida. So we just kind of continued that path and then spread out to other states, because
Yes.
come up with a system.
and they were great tenants, but they ended up having the opportunity to get a larger house and to buy a house, because they were with us for
2017.
17 and never missed a payment. It was great tenants. So we were
Well,
sad to see them go.
And what are you guys doing with the property now?
They're gonna leave,
yeah, we're just
in a
gonna
couple weeks, and then we're
clean
gonna,
it out or whatever, and then re-rent it.
then we have found that property managers. That's, we're happy to get
For the short term.
contact.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We do really well with our Palmetto short term. It's pretty awesome.
It's probably more of a working class, neighborhood that,
Yeah, working
more long-term.
class rental.
So probably more suited for that neighborhood, that community is probably more suited for a regular long-term rental. But yeah, we would
Gotcha.
love to get into more corporate rentals, and that's what I've been like obsessed with, trying to get into like the corporate rentals, because they're kind of short-term, but they're mostly traveling nurses. And also, but no matter
Yep.
what market you're in, you're going to get them filled. Like if you have vacation rentals, when the economy's bad and people aren't traveling, or during off seasons, they sit. But the corporate rentals, they seem to be filled pretty regularly. So
We'll have to have a separate conversation. I don't want to take us off course here, but I love the short terms. I think the market's saturated with them right now because it's so easy anyone can do it. But if you're differentiating your properties, you're setting them up properly, you're optimizing the listings, you're having them professionally cleaned, the revenue is 2 to 3 times a lot of times what a long term is. So even if you have those vacancies, it's not a big deal. Someone's always in there cleaning, someone's always in there maintaining. So we go to our short term and it's spotless. We don't have to do any major maintenance. So we love it.
Awesome.
that's true.
Yeah.
And then a lot of places around here, they're doing away with, that you don't legally can't do short terms in areas like Sarasota City.
Enacted like the limits on occupancy.
In the city, the county, they still can do, but the Sarasota City is very strict.
Baltimore
Mike, there
City
are-
also is not on to short term, the actual
Really?
city.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
Mike, their email
Maryland,
address.
our market is. I'm sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to mention that their email address I actually put in there. If you want to reach out to them, and Jane and Sharon, I just emailed you his email address. You guys want
Oh,
to keep in touch.
thank you. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I don't want to.
That's okay.
No,
The
no
Facebook
worries.
page, they're on it quite a bit too. If you want to join on the Facebook page, that's on there as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions related to this team building or anything else, or?
Anything with single families, any concerns, questions?
Quiet group.
You got a funny story about a horrible tenant? Or do you have a lot of funny stories about a lot of horrible tenants?
I don't know if they're funny.
like, it all generally just comes down to they stop paying. I mean, we had one in Sarasota that took full
Advantage.
advantage of COVID. Just didn't pay, couldn't get them out. We had one in Baltimore City that she would break stuff, then call the code officer and then, say we didn't fix it, so she wasn't paying rent, then went to court. The judge told her she had to put the rent in escrow and she didn't do that, and then came back and said sorry, and he said, okay, you have another month. So she lived in our house for probably almost a year without before we could finally get her out. And then, so yeah, I don't like those kind of stories, but
It's frustrating because when we had the rentals in Baltimore City, they seem to know the rules and the regulations with tenant laws more than the investors and the landlords. They would get together, I swear they'd get together and collaborate.
they have a Zoom meeting where they're saying how they can get out of paying.
It gets frustrating, like, to the point where you can't evict them if the temperature goes down 32 degrees or less, it's different.
But we haven't really had anybody that tore up the house, or like, we've been fortunate where most of the time the houses, we had one in Florida where she came and cleaned the house. She didn't pay for 3 months rent and we had to evict her, but she came to clean the house to try to get her security deposit back but then she left a bunch of junk in the yard. But just those kind of things, but nobody's actually been vindictive and tore up the house or any of that kind of stuff.
The worst person that tore up the house, we had a rental in Gary, Indiana, it was bank owned and we acquired it from the bank, but it still had the tenant in place, and we were responsible for doing the eviction process for that. And it wasn't our tenant, we didn't screen them. So we were trying to do the keys for cash type of thing where you give them a certain amount of money to leave. If, you take a before picture with them and then an after picture. And if, they didn't tear it up and it's in the same condition, then you give them anywhere from, I've heard $500 to maybe $5,000, depending on the, the condition and the price of the house, the price point of the house. And, they'll leave. So sometimes that mitigates, the situation where they won't tear up the house, because you make it perfectly clear and take before and after videos before they can get that money. And but they did not want to work with us or do the keys for cash, and they got very angry. They ended up taking they put cement or concrete down in the toilets. They took a hammer and put holes in every wall, in every room. They ripped the inside doors off the hinges. They took the ceiling fans and ripped them all down. That was probably the worst, where they were really nasty and vindictive. And it wasn't even, what we just bought it with the tenant in place. But
the good news was we bought it for 16,000. We only had to we have such a great contractor, didn't put that much in it. And then it was a rental for 3 years, and then we just sold it and still made money.
I think we ended up, we're all in for like 45, 50,000. And the renter was $900 a month rent. And they were a really good renter. So it worked out great.
And then you had
And
another
that's-
person that stayed with you for 6 years too, right? The one that
Yep.
just moved
Yep.
out. So
Yeah, and
success
it's
stories as well.
yeah, it's and that's most of the time we find out from other investors. It's few and far between, I guess, that you get the crazy ones. So you just have to remember the good ones and learn the mistakes that you made with those. And we know investors that actually buy houses that they're already occupied on leases. We don't particularly like to do that. So that's a different style of, what kind of investor you are. Some people like to acquire the problems or acquire the good tenants, but you never know. And then some people just like them empty. And we typically, unless it's somebody else we work for, because sometimes, work with, sometimes we get deals from other people, in the investor community. So we know that they vet them the right way. So we might take that leftover tenant, but most of the time we want them vacant. We want to put our own tenant in there. That's just our our philosophy. I know there's other people that like to have cash flow right away.
Hey, quick question on the lease. When you go into a lease, what's your rationalization? Is it just to have a property? And do you assume the mortgage from the current owner?
Do you mean when we acquire houses with people?
With just the lease? You said you go in and you just procure the lease or just take over the lease.
Well, some people, yeah, some investors will buy a house with a tenant already in there, so you have to honor the lease that's already
in
in
place?
place. So if I buy a house and they just signed a lease for a year, I have to honor that lease.
Okay.
So then
Oh,
you're
gotcha,
acquiring
gotcha.
that person, and then, but sometimes we like to buy them where they're vacant and we can place the tenant in there, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I understand now. Sounds
Or-
good.
And then sometimes our strategy, we buy houses with problem people in there, squatters or problem tenants that need to be evicted, and we'll go through the headache of the eviction process and then, to be able to acquire the property at a discounted price. So.
Correct. Okay.
That's another.
And not to go on a tangent, but I just heard a story and it was on TikTok, so I haven't verified it, but there was a guy down in Texas who actually squatted after he found out that the owner was under foreclosure and the bank went under. And I thought typically when the bank goes under, there's a MERS and the MERS, and then they typically it goes to another bank or that gets bought out. But it was a very interesting story.
I'm sure I could see that happening.
Yes,
Totally see that happening.
Thank you.
Sure.
thank you.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Oh, Charlie?
Yes, the story that you were telling on the squatter, you were able to get that person out just by going through the normal eviction process?
Yes,
Yeah, we had an attorney do that one because it was a foreclosure. So attorney did that one. But
Okay.
once they had the paperwork, then that's when they weren't happy.
but there are certain, like when you do the paperwork for squatters to get them evicted, there's like different verbiage that you use in some of the other states or counties or municipalities
Oh,
to separate the squatter from like a tenant, to remove a tenant. There's, you have to check off different boxes sometimes. In other municipalities, it's just goes through the same way as if it's a regular eviction.
uh-huh.
And it was Mississippi, yeah, a town in Mississippi where there were squatters in there, and we were able to acquire the house for a really good price. And they required us to get the squatter's name in order for it to get processed through the courts. And it was hard to get the squatter's name because they weren't on any kind of records. There was no lease agreements. They just, snuck in there. And that was kind of a strange law, or I guess the way that they did things in this small town in Mississippi. It's like, how am I supposed to get their information and their name? We ended up they ended up having some mail or something come there, and we
Right.
were just grab that name on there and say, here it is. So then they needed only one name, and then it said, then we could put in there all other occupants, but they wanted one. So it's different. There's different rules and
Yeah.
standards for different areas and counties and states.
Great, good story.
The story I heard in Texas actually seemingly protected the squatter. And it was such an obscure Texas law that he actually recorded the fact that he was squatting in the court records. But it was very interesting. I don't know if I'd have that risk, be able to be as risky in having to get a squatter out now.
It does get frustrated because, they'll just like break into the house and start moving, start living there and, and then establish the residency. And I don't think it's very fair that they have rights.
I
But
have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So my question is there a list of states where it's more favorable for the owner rather than the tenant when it comes to eviction and the laws?
Yeah, and that's typically the states we try to stay in. You know, we just try to stay in the landlord friendly. I don't know if there's an actual list. You just kind of get to know them. You know, definitely Florida, we've had an easier time getting people out. We're actually, you know, not buying anything in Baltimore for the most part. Like, it would have to be a really good deal, and we'd have to get a good team again back in order, just because it's been so hard. You know, just the tenant stuff there. So Maryland's not a favorite of ours anymore. The Carolinas are pretty good. Mississippi, Alabama, the southern states are pretty good. So we just, you know, we're cognizant, and before we get a property, you know, that's always the first question. Is it landlord friendly, or is it, you know, tenant friendly, or kind of to go through the eviction process? And that would be one of the things we would ask a property manager in a different place that we haven't been in is, you know, how long does it take to get out? You know, what do you have to do? Is it, you know, because a lot of times they'll say you can get them out in 30 days, but that 30 days is really 90 days. Or, you know, in Baltimore with the one lady, we had her, she was the sheriff was coming, everything was cool, and then there was a snowstorm. It was 31 degrees, and the sheriff's like, nope, can't kick people out at 32 degrees or less. So, you know, then that delays things. So, you know, just all those things. In Florida, it doesn't get 32 degrees, so
Thank
they can't use that. But,
They might be able to use hurricanes.
but so definitely, you know, find the states are landlord friendly.
And then
The
sometimes
other, sorry, I
Go
didn't
ahead.
mean to cut you guys off. I
No,
was
no,
just
go
gonna
ahead.
say the other maybe rule of thumb is typically red states are more landlord friendly.
yes, you're absolutely right. And then sometimes it's like certain parts of the states are more landlord friendly and other parts of the states are more tenant friendly. So it might not just be the whole state. So, you know,
Yeah.
that is a good point. That's a good rule of thumb, usually the red states versus the blue states, but
And we've kind of adjusted a little bit. You know, we try to stay out of the actual cities, because it's just, you know, there's more, you know, not that we are going to have a bad house, but there's just more regulations. There's rental inspection fees and all that other stuff. There's code violations. There's, you know, so it's just, there's less things to worry about when we're afar. So, you know, Baltimore wouldn't, the city might not, you know, we might go out to the county. We have some houses up in Cumberland. You know, the code inspector's likely to call us and say, hey, the grass is high with your tenant. Whereas in Baltimore, they're just gonna slap a fine on us. So just cognizant of those kind of things too.
and that's a good point. We try to reach out to the code enforcement people in the different areas that we're and just, you know, become friendly with them, let them know that we're kind of doing it from afar. And if they see a problem, reach out to us. We're transparent and keep the lines of communication open with them. So that does help. So
Anybody
Well,
else? Any questions?
Just one further comment. I know Washington DC is a strongly favors the tenant.
Gotcha.
have you had issue with tenants there?
No, but when I was getting my master's in real estate development, I was actually doing a study in the DC versus other areas, and it was evident that it takes a longer time to evict an individual in DC, much like what you were talking about in Baltimore. And it's just it's not considered a landlord friendly area. Plus of the rent controls as well. It's not necessarily one place I would probably go rent. Wouldn't be my first choice.
Note to self, I'm writing that down.
And
Yeah.
that's a good point you brought up too, because like in Florida, there's, you know, it's almost unfair to the tenant in Florida because you can raise the rent as high as you want. And there's no control at all. You know, I feel like there needs to be some happy medium there, because, you know, a family could be living in a house and the landlord can go and say, oh, your rent's raised $800 a month, and there's nothing that the tenant can do. So, you know, I feel like it shouldn't be favored on one side, you know, far on the one side or far on the other. It should be some common ground in the middle of it.
Correct. And Maryland just instituted a law which will take effect July 1st, where if you raise the rent a certain percentage, you have to give them 120 days notice. It may be 90 days notice, but I know there's something to that effect.
Good to know.
Yeah.
But we've seen like, since all the rents are going up so high, and I'm sure everywhere, but in Florida, they were going up crazy, and it was crazy how the landlords were like taking advantage of that, and just, it may be given the notice, but still, if you're, the people that had rents, we had our houses, a couple of our houses that were smaller houses in Sarasota, that the average rent was like 12 to 1,500 a month. And now those same houses, landlords are getting like 2,000 to 2,300 a month rent for it's when the prices are like outrageous with the rents.
Anybody else? We want to be respectful of time, and if anybody has any questions, if not, we'll call it a night. And then next week we're gonna do the next part of the team, which is the
Title
probably the biggest part is contractors and landscapers and handymen. So
had title company.
well, maybe title companies too.
Okay.
We're actually going to try to get one of the contractors to come on, just maybe a little bit from their perspective, but what they see for a couple, almost like a podcast kind of thing or interview kind of thing, just to see from their perspective. We know what we look for, but sometimes investors also, they take advantage of the contractors. So kind of both sides of that story, but sound good?
I meant to say whoopee, not whoops. Okay.
And I think our website's in there. We really do have a lot of free good free
Content.
stuff. You can certainly join and you'll get a whole lot more, but there's some documents and some free stuff on there. I think a scope of works on there that we typically use, and some other free stuff if you want to look around. And certainly our email's on there, and just give us a holler if you need anything. And if not, we'll see you next Tuesday at 7:30. Everybody have a good holiday weekend. Maybe.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank
Yep.
you, Al.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.